just to make sure, she stays okay. So Royce was like, you know what? I know the best doctors. I'm gonna have someone fly in. We're gonna take her to. I think one of them was called the Cove, some Cove Hospital, but it was like an amazing hospital. He's like, I'm gonna have like the best obstetrician fly in, look at her, make sure she's okay. She'll be in the top, the best suite in the hospital. I'll make sure she's okay. And he did it, and they stayed there until after midnight. So when they got back home, it was super late. And when she goes to her room, McAllister is sitting in her room. And he's pissed. And he's like, you're late. And she's like, do you not know that I have just come from the hospital dealing with what happened to my sister? And he's like, I know about your sister. You think I don't know when someone uses my helicopter? And I was like, oh my gosh. But he was like, but you owe me a game of chess. He didn't care. Like, no, we will play chess every day, and we are not deviating from that. So they play chess, and then he offers her a deal. And he lets her know that he wants to teach her about pleasure. And she's like, I don't want you to teach me about pleasure. Even though she does find him physically attractive, but she doesn't want to admit this because she is engaged to Royce. She really does love Royce, but there is this attraction to McAllister. And so he goes, I have a gift for you. And he gives her a little velvet box. And in the box, she's looking at it, and she know what it was. It was a vibrator. Well, she had never used a vibrator. She'd always just gotten herself off. So she was like, what am I supposed to do with this? He says, every night at 10:30, you're going to put that in you. He's like, and I'm going to control it from my phone. And you're going to text me how many orgasms you have. So, of course, she's like, no. Why would I? No, I'm not going to do that. So he tries to make it enticing, letting her know, if you do it, you can get your vehicle. But she's still stuck to it. She was like, no, I cannot do that. No, I'm not doing it. So she leaves. The next day, she goes on a lunch date with Sophia Albee. And she asks her to be a bridesmaid. And she doesn't really have any female friends. Again, the only one she had was her sister. So she does need some bridesmaids. So this works out. But she also is starting to work a plan together. So she plants a lie to Sophia and tells her that McAllister isn't going to give the company to Royce when he retires. And so Sophia's like, wow, really? That doesn't make sense. She's like, yeah, he said he's not going to do it. And Vance doesn't want it because he wants a political career. So I don't know what's going to happen. And so Sophia's soaking this stuff up. And she's like, but you can't tell anybody. And of course, Sophia's like, oh, no, I wouldn't dare. But she knows Sophia's going to tell everybody. And that was her reason for doing it. But then she's thinking, and she's like, you know what? If I want to get some type of a freedom, I'm going to have to make a deal with, McAllister. So she accepts McAllister's deal. So that night, she takes the vibrator, she puts it in, and of course she has an orgasm. And so she texts him, and she's like, 1. And he texts her back, tomorrow it'll be 2. And so she tried to think of, and she thought of Royce at that time when she was like having her orgasm. She was thinking of Royce. And so the next day, her and Royce, well, actually, no, she just went by herself because she did earn to get her keys. So she went to go see her sister the next day, and at the hospital. And of course, Maris is all put together. She looks all nice. And her sister kind of looks at her with some envy, because I think Emily's thinking, you know what, I could have had that life. But Emily got pregnant so she wouldn't have to, marry Royce and she wouldn't have to be under the control. But then she looks at the decision she's made and it's kind of like, well, hell, her life's looking pretty good compared to mine. I'm pregnant, the father isn't in the picture. I'm by myself, my family, we don't have as much anymore. Like it's kind of an eye opener for her. And, in Maris's mind, she's like, you don't even understand the things I have to do, for just like this simple freedom to be able to get in my car and come and see you. So, kind of like, the haves and the have and have nots, but they both kind of have. But it's that whole idea of looking at someone else's life and then thinking, this is what I wish my life was like, and not really, really realizing, like, no, you probably wouldn't really want it. There's more attached to it. So the next night, she has her chess game with McAllister, and he asks, they're talking about it, and he said, how did you enjoy the orgasm? And I'm like, oh my gosh, she should have known he was going to bring it up. It's McAllister, for goodness sake. And she's pretty much like, yeah, it was great, because I was thinking of Royce the whole time. And he got pissed, and he was like, you're going to think of me. I'm going to make sure that the next time you think of me. And so, that night, when he called, at 10:30, when she puts it in, she's thinking about, she's thinking about him, but at the same time, it's like, it is what it is, she's just kind of going through the motions, but these orgasms do feel extremely well to her. So he called her, actually, after she texted him, I've had one, he called her and he starts talking to her, and he's like, he has a nice, sexy voice, so he's saying all these things to her, and he's telling her he wants to please her. He was like, if you would just give me the opportunity that I could please you, I'm an older man, I know how to. And of course, as much as she wants to think of Royce, she can't, because McAllister, she's listening to his voice, and he had told her, I'm going to make you say my name when you come. And sure enough, when she came, she said McAllister's name. And she felt so horrible and dirty afterwards. But he's one of those people. He's going to get what he wants. Any means necessary. So the next day, she decides she wants to rebel. And so she goes and she gets a tattoo of Medusa on her. And so when she goes to work, she has like this bandage, and Royce is like, what is that? And he looked and he peeked and he's like, oh, Medusa. And she's like, yeah. So she was reading Royce's emails, and she was noticing that she just kind of was going back in the history, looking at his different emails, because she's trying to just kind of figure out what's going on, because Royce isn't going to tell her, so she's trying to, play detective. And so as she's looking at the different emails, she sees where there's this interaction with him and someone else, where he's purchasing a lot of stock for a bank called Ascension. And she starts to realize, okay, this must be something that's in the works to help him take over, the Hale Holding Company, And she can't really ask Royce because he's not going to tell her. But she's just trying to kind of piece everything together. So before he has a meeting, but before he leaves, she's like, listen, I kind of need to tell you something. And he's like, what? She's like, well, I made a deal with McAllister. And he was like, what? Did you sleep with him? And she's like, no, I didn't sleep with him. She said, but I did let him give me an orgasm. He said, whoa, 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 wait a minute. What do you mean you let him give you an orgasm? So then she told him about the deal and about the vibrator and what happens when he, 10:30 and she has to text him how many orgasms. And so he's pissed, but it's like that he's so angry he can't speak type of thing. And so he just shuts down. And he didn't talk to her for like a couple of days. Like, she would try and talk to him, she'd try and text him, and he just really shut down. So he texts her all of a sudden and tell her, hey, come meet me in the maze. And she's like, all right, I'm coming. Well, when she walks out of the room, McAllister is there. She runs right into him. He says, where are you going? And she's like, oh, I'm going to meet Royce. And he goes, oh, good. I'll come with you. I have some things to discuss with both of you. And so here she comes. And when he hears the steps, Royce, of course, is happy. And then he sees his dad. And he's like, oh, gosh. So McAllister's letting him know, hey, yeah, I need to talk to you guys about some things. And so Royce lets him know, I'm going to buy back Maris for $50 million. So McAllister's like, first of all, you don't even have that kind of money. I know what you got. I know your net worth. And I wouldn't let you bankrupt yourself like that anyway. So no deal. That's not happening. So then he tells Maris, he said, but I do have a deal for you. And she was like, what? And Royce is like, don't do it. And McAllister's like, shut up. Like, let her make up her own mind. And he's like, no, I have another deal for you. He was like, what if you can get out of this maze before me, then the deal is off. You don't have to worry about anything. Deal's off. And she knows this maze at this point. And she's pretty confident that she could do it. So she accepts the deal. But of course, his terms are simple. If you lose, I get my 2 minutes that you denied me at the initiation. And she was like, all right. So Royce is pissed, but he leaves. And so he said, okay, another little stipulation. You got to be naked when you do it. He was like, I'm going to turn you around. I'm going to make you a little disoriented. He was like, and then you have to find your way out before me. So she's feeling confident. She's thinking she's going to do it. So she gets to, he takes her clothes off. Well, she takes her own clothes off. And he spins her around and lets her go. And he also gave her like a 10-second head start. Didn't matter. When she got to the front, he was already there. And she said, how in the world? She's like, she freaked out. How did you do this? How in the world? And he knows the maze. He built it. So he knew how to leave out of the maze and get to the front. And she's like, you didn't say anything about leaving the maze. He said, I didn't say anything about not leaving the maze. I just said you had to beat me. And you didn't. So he grabs her. She's fighting. She's pissed. She's crying. She's so upset. And he takes her to, there's a little, it's not a barn, but it's like a little house right there off the side. And he lays her down and he's like, if you just let me please you, it could be just so much better. And so she's like, fine. And so he starts to kiss on her. And he lets her know, actually before that, he tells her, he's like, I just need these 2 minutes. He was like, I don't know why I'm so upset. He's like, I can't help it. I think it's because you denied me that I can't let go of you. He was like, it's this pitiful obsession. He was like, but if you just let me have you, he was like, I can get over it and we can all just move on. And it was crazy for her because she's like, oh my gosh, he just confessed he's obsessed with me. Like, that is so creepy. But he really felt like if he could just have her, he would be okay. It would go away. And so that's when he starts